Field pregame, Eagles, Birds. Let's go, Birds! E-A-G-L-E-S, Eagles! Let's fucking go.
Welcome to the Media Odyssey Podcast. That is Shapiro.
And that is Marion, Ranchet.
This week on the pod, we're doing a masterclass in modern fandom, storytelling. We're going to be talking all things sports. And I think I've found the only person who's going to get Evan to shut up for an hour.
I don't think so. I'm going to be shouting, "Go Birds," the entire time. We've got the head of marketing, the marketing guru from the Philadelphia Super Bowl champion football Eagles, Jen Kavanaugh, with us.
Welcome, Jen.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. That was a fantastic introduction.
Go Birds.
Go Birds.
Thank you so much. I mean, I'm geeking out here. You and I have gotten to be pretty good friends over the last couple of years, but I'm just, how big an Eagles fan I am.
Yeah.
I'm an even larger fan, if it can be said, of your marketing. The social media feeds that you provide, it's not marketing. It's just great content. I watch more Philadelphia Eagles TikTok than probably anything else I watch. So let's throw it to you.
Yeah.
What is your approach to fandom for a football franchise as important as and storied as the Philadelphia Eagles?
Well, first of all, that's a huge compliment coming from you. You're one of my favorite super fans. And obviously, being someone who is so astute in this industry, it is a huge compliment. And it tells me that the team is doing a great job. I think the first thing to understand about the Eagles is that our fans are multi-generational. They inherit this fandom. Their memories of the Eagles are some of the most special memories of their entire lives, and their intent is generally to pass that down for generations to come. So we sit in a very special and unique place in people's lives. Therefore, we have a great responsibility, and that is to nurture and grow that fandom and give them what they're looking for from us 365 days a year. And, what that means as an NFL team is really about kind of giving them the keys to the kingdom. Fans want to be as close to the team as they possibly can. They want to know as much about the players' lives as they can. They want to make connections on and off the field. So in order to do that, there's a tremendous amount of trust that goes into allowing my team to go into a locker room with a mini mic and a camera and deliver on that promise. And that trust really comes from culture. And that starts at the top. And I can't, state enough the importance of having a culture that understands that delivering on this connection is important, not just to the team, to the fans, and to the players, but to the future of the brand as a whole. So I give Jeffrey Lurie, our owner, a ton of credit. Howie, our GM, a ton of credit. My boss, all the leadership at the top embraces this, and it would not be possible without them and my incredibly talented team who have fantastic and fun ideas that they want to execute every single day with our guys.
I think when we chatted, you mentioned that the culture that you've built around the team and the fandom is actually recognizable globally. And I'd be interested to understand how you did that, because for me, the European, when you speak football, I'm seeing a round ball. I often thought, right, that any teams were very much, it was a city thing, it was a country thing, but that it would not go beyond, the borders of the US.
You don't have to be fluent in football to feel a connection to the team. And I think a lot of that has to do with the way that football and sports in general sort of sit in culture. Culture is not a static entity. Culture is very fluid. Within football culture is food culture, music culture, fashion culture. And so that gives us a lot of opportunities to make connections with people through different doors who may not have previously been familiar with American football at all. and understanding the flexibility that we have to make those connections and be creative about how we go about it is really important, particularly since, we are now actively marketing in and have been actively marketing in Australia, Ghana, and New Zealand for the past few years, and have recently added Brazil to the mix. So, there's a desire to help bring people closer to the game so that they can watch and understand it and feel invested in it, but also, again, to make those connections through other things they may be passionate about, most importantly leading to, some sort of connection with our players and the brand as a whole. So, we try a lot of different things. We like to take chances and be as diverse as possible in the way that we go about it, and then take a step back and learn from sort of the result. Did people connect? Did they stay tuned to the video? Did it encourage them to subscribe? It's a constant sort of learning process with a lot of flexibility built into the system, I guess.
Yeah, I like to say that marketing is not good content, but good content is great marketing.
Mm,
And I feel that the narrative, the storytelling, you've constructed almost your own version of like Abbott Elementary or The Office happening in the locker room and around the field of the game. And what's I find most fascinating is your biggest stars are really not at the center of this storytelling.
mm.
Jalen does very little. Jalen Hurts, the
He's
greatest.
very busy. He's very
Yeah, but he's not in the videos. Saquon Barkley is not in a lot of the videos. It's the rest of the characters, and you've built this cast of characters, Mulata and Dickerson and all
Yeah.
these other characters. What was the approach around that? Because
Mhm.
it is an ensemble comedy that's
Uh-huh.
happening on an ongoing basis. How did you construct that thesis? What was the kind of narrative, imperative as you went into all of this?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with getting to know these guys as individuals. Who are they? What are they passionate about? How do they like to have fun? Are they interested in, interacting with the audience in this way on a frequent basis? Like I said, everyone's schedules in the building are different. Everyone's personalities are different. You're going to see a lot of Jalen and Saquon in highlight videos and beautiful, cinematic moments from our games. And when it comes to sort of locker room fun, some of these other guys step forward because it's what they're really passionate about. And I think that it's also not even just partially, I think a big part of what you're seeing now is that these guys coming out of school as young men in their 20s have only ever known a time where social media was a very sort of central part of their life. They understand and have participated in NIL. They understand what it means to build a brand early and how to do it. So they come in the door really wanting to lean in and have fun and be present and do more with us. Whereas, 10 years ago, maybe that was less the case because these guys were really just more football focused than anything. So it's a dynamic that I think also comes with some of those other sort of external influences.
Because when did you join? If you don't mind me asking, were you
Yes.
pre or post Super Bowl hire?
I joined in July 2018 after we had won our first Super Bowl. And so I always say like, okay, I didn't get the
Good
ring.
timing.
Right. Well, so the benefit of that, everyone was like, oh, that's so sad you didn't get a ring. I said, yeah, but I was coming into a new place and a new role that was unfamiliar to me. And what starting at that time meant was that I was immediately connected to what it is we are here to do every day because I stepped into the halo of what it means to win a Super Bowl championship. And even though you turn the page and you move on and you're focused on what's ahead of you, I immediately was like grounded and, oh, right, like that is why we're all here. So,
Yeah, and for you, that was an amazing opportunity to, make the most of that, high moment, but a lot of responsibility as well. And so, to go back to, how you managed to start working with athletes and convince, the entire staff, because it feels like it's not just the players. You're also
hmm
doing that with, the coaches. You have the audience. You have super fans.
hmm
How do you embark everyone? And again, to the point you were making, not everyone is always open or knows how to use social media.
hmm yeah, I mean, you always want to match the right person to the moment. So if there are different lanes of content, let's say you've got your X's and O's, which, that is a very important lane for us. We need to make sure that our fans are fully fed with that content through both things like highlights and press conferences and more traditional football type content. But then again, we're trying to sort of create these other lanes that we think are maybe going to connect with someone's comedic sensibility, or it's going to connect with young women in particular, or it's going to ping that relatability around, what it means to be a best friend or to be in a relationship or to get ready for, a big night out. And that is where I think if you look at our YouTube channel, a lot of the diversity of the content is designed to try to, test some of those lanes and see what sticks. For example, I will forever find it interesting that to this day, all the content that we've posted, including after, two Super Bowls and three Super Bowls, two Super Bowl wins, at least since I've been here, the most watched video on our social platforms is Lincoln the Eagle flying around the stadium during the national anthem. I mean, I had to take a step back and say, wait a minute, we have created really good stuff. How is it that this video, as incredible as it is, and as a moment in real life and as a video, and it was very simple. Like once you thought about it, it's because this moment, like sports, is a great unifier. Everyone is feeling this, this euphoria, this feeling of connectedness, patriotism, whatever it was, this pride in being, an Eagles fan in the stadium at that moment, or watching from home. And I think that is a perfect example of the other types of elements of what it means to be a human that's passionate about a brand that we're constantly trying to tap into.
You've inspired. You talked about handing the brand over to the fans, and it is kind of amazing the amount of user generated, fan generated content.
Yeah.
You and I talked about this really brilliant young woman who does this Philly ASMR
Yeah.
stuff. And if you don't know what ASMR is, it's whispering into your face,
Yeah.
and she does this in the Delco accent that's become so famous now.
Yeah.
But I think what that speaks to, and this is something we've mentioned on the podcast a lot, is as marketers, you have to move away from the vanity metrics of the past, pure just
Mhm.
follower counts, pure
Mhm.
subscriber numbers,
Mhm.
and into engagement, into passion indices.
Yeah.
What are your KPIs? How do you measure success? Is it follower count? Is it views? Is it shares? Is it likes? What is your measurement of success?
Sure. Like I think things like follower count are things that we track. Engagement, certainly, but what we care about the most is how much time our fans spend with us. They have so many options. We live in this attention economy that is more cluttered than ever, right? And so the more time they choose to spend with us in minutes and hours, the more we understand that we're deepening that connection, we're achieving that goal. This season alone, I think over 1 million hours of content's been consumed on our YouTube channel. And that to me is like a good signal, that we're accomplishing the goal of connection. Um, Engagement matters, things like views and likes and certainly comments. We learn a lot from the comments. We read the comments. It's a great way to take the temperature of
Oh, oh my
our fan
gosh.
base,
After
right?
even after a loss, you read the comments?
We do, and people always say, "Oh, it must be so terrible." And yeah, sure, it's not great when we lose. It's not great to see the fans upset. But what we understand is that it is not the worst case scenario. Is not that our fans are upset about an outcome. It's when they become apathetic, and apathy is the absolute enemy in this game because everything else is just passion expressed at a different moment in time and around a different circumstance. So. We read the comments, we learn a lot from them, even just, sort of qualitatively about things that they, feel particularly excited about, which then spurns an idea like, oh, they really liked, this interaction between these two players. Let's do 3 more of those and see where it goes. So we're constantly just trying to learn through all those signals.
And it's been really amazing to watch. I mean, you talked about applying appealing to female fans, and it
Yes.
does feel like there's a major growth
Hmm.
amongst female super fans.
Yes.
It used to be, kind of disproportionately male, and we had female fans, obviously, but
Yeah.
now it feels like the female fans are actually taking charge. They're like stepping forward and becoming the most vocal super
Yes.
fans out there. Was that something that you really aimed for?
We definitely love to see it and embrace it, and I'm not surprised by it. I mean, we've been saying forever and a day, and you probably remember back in the NBCU days, we were screaming, "Women are not a niche," and
Right.
they're not a niche ever
They're the
anywhere.
majority, actually.
Right. And in sports, they're not a niche either. And they are not one dimensional. And so the way that, young women in particular have kind of embraced and started to express their fandom has been very interesting and something that we're excited to see, want to continue to embrace. It's about the game day fit check, and it might be
Right.
about a game day brunch, and it might be about, a tailgate with caviar instead of cheesesteaks. Like, we love that because I think it's a perfect example of like fandom in general is not one dimensional. Women certainly aren't one dimensional. And once you kind of, crack that open, like the possibilities are, endless of what could come from it and how the next generation of women Eagles fans will want to express themselves. So I think it's really cool. They tend to gravitate towards certain types of content back to the lanes, for example. And again, this is not to say that women don't care about X's and O's, but when we produce a video with Reed Blankenship and Cooper DeJean, that friendship dynamic, they're in, right? And probably both because, they're popular players, but also because like what is like to be a bestie? I like to see other besties, and so that stuff's really giving us a lot of fun things to kind of experiment with.
And so, could you speak to, because you mentioned at the top that you have, multi-generational, fans,
Mhm.
and so, of course, different, demos, different ages, etc. What are you noticing in the way those, different segments, for lack of a better word, are, behaving towards sport, your team, and how do
Mhm.
you then cater to such a diverse, audience?
Well, I think for the most part, and I hate to overgeneralize, but I'm going to do my best to sum it up. I think our fans that are of an older generation,
Yeah.
they are on platforms. I don't know. I think you're psychographically how old? I don't know. You
Right.
might be a little
I'm
different.
I
I think
am
she meant
chronologically
70,
old.
but I know you're nearing there, but you still have a
Thanks a
few good
lot. Thanks
years.
a lot.
So maybe even instead of categorizing them in ages, if I were to categorize them as in more archetypes, like the fans who are just football purists, they're here for the game, they care about the traditional, metrics and X's and O's. In many cases, like they're already getting a lot of what they need, right,
Mm.
to be satisfied, both from us and from Philadelphia sports media. I mean, we have such a robust sports media landscape here, and so it's very hard not to get enough.
Yeah.
If you're part of that group, I'd say for everyone else, that's where being on the platforms that matter and thinking about how we create content that is a match for that platform and not spraying and praying. TikTok is a very different place than Instagram. Instagram is a very different place than X, as we all know.
Mm.
And so if you look at sort of what we're creating for each of those platforms, you'll see that it's designed to kind of lean into who we know is there and what people tend to want. I view TikTok as a much more optimistic place,
Mm.
sometimes than a platform like X can be. YouTube is for longer form storytelling where we can really go kind of deep on certain things. So you have to, I think, be committed to the diversity of platforms, but also the personalization that's required to do well on them.
So, an episode about football and the Philadelphia Football Eagles, I think it's the perfect time to mention that this episode is brought to you by Spectrum Reach. And I think it's applicable because sports is a really fragmented content genre right now. So much of sport is all over the place. It's hard to find a football game. It's hard to know which network it's on, what time it's on, any of that kind of stuff. And Spectrum here in the US has about 93% of all live sport comes across Spectrum's platform.
And so you've been traveling like crazy. So I wonder, how do you keep up, with your fandom? How do you watch the latest games?
It's hard. Last Monday night, I was traveling to the UK, at night. So it was an overnight flight. And the Eagles, as they are often, were on primetime television because they're the defending champions. And so they were on Monday Night Football. But I was in transit. I was actually, as the game was coming on, I was going through security and going to the Delta Lounge, and I just couldn't watch the game. And even in the Delta Lounge, they didn't necessarily have the right channel on and the sound wasn't on. So I logged onto the Spectrum app, and it was great. I was able to not only watch the game, but as I was going through security, I turned off the screen and put it in my pocket, and I was listening to the game live as I was going through security, as I was going to the lounge, as I was going to the gate, as I was getting on the plane. And it was really exciting. I was kind of toggling between audio and video. I was also toggling between Monday Night Football, the primary feed on ESPN. And here in the States, there's a second version of Monday Night Football on ESPN2 where the Manning brothers do something called a Manning cast. And so it was just really smooth. The quality was amazing. Even, when I was on Wi-Fi, it was great. When I was off Wi-Fi, it was great. And what I found interesting about it is I was more engaged with the ads than I had ever been. Geico sponsored a tremendous amount of the broadcast. So it was just a really engaging experience. And for me, as you said, for someone on the go, but I think also for the average consumer, that app is just spectacular. It works always works. And it gives you that television experience on your phone, on your laptop, on your tablet, wherever you're going.
So what does Spectrum actually provides advertisers when it comes to data?
So first of all, the deterministic data that Spectrum Reach has because of their relationship with their customers allows the advertiser to build an audience really hyper-targeted at the consumers that they most want, and then on the back end, get robust reporting on performance of that advertising that is really unprecedented or unequaled in the connected television ecosystem. Beyond that, they are able to, because of this unique partnership with Gracenote, they're able to go give show-level data for bid stream advertising to the advertising partners that no one else in television is offering.
I love that. So question, how do I get my hands on that app?
We have to move to the United States.
That's
Although, let's
that's
be honest. Well, let's be honest here for a second. We did a recording with the Spectrum Reach guys, Jen Kavanaugh at Cannes Lion, and we were in their apartment at Cannes Lion, and you still use the products that they gave you at that.
I do. It's full here. So the lip balm, and I've been traveling like crazy. So the power charge, yeah, they've been around me these last few months quite some time.
And what's important about this whole conversation is, I think we've talked about this before. Sports is now one of the only big reliable pieces of programming to do good advertising because it's live, it's a heavily engaged fandom. But sports itself has become so fragmented. How do you make sure that the sizable amount of money you're spending in a sports environment targeting that audience is effective? And to me, this live television environment that Spectrum Reach offers is one of the only places that you can get that kind of proven and demonstrable effective advertising message.
So for listeners out there, if you want sports without chaos, download the Spectrum app.
And if you're an advertiser, look at Spectrum Reach for the most personalized and really robust way to target your audience and prove performance on the other side. All right, let's get back to the episode. It's, you don't need to sell tickets. The game is always sold out, right? There's a waiting list for season tickets in Philadelphia. And it's been that way for basically since you moved to the link to a certain extent. What are the business outcomes you're looking to generate here? Is it merch sales? Is it, what viewership of the games and the Eagles games when they're on primetime television, which is very often these days, they tend to be the most watched games of the season very often. What are the business outcomes you're looking to generate?
Yeah, no, great question. So the health of the team, the health of the sport, the health of the brand goes, just beyond ticket sales. Ticket sales are incredibly important, and as you said, we're fortunate we get to put resources into other things because we're covered there. But we want to grow globally. We're a well known team here, obviously in the United States with tens of millions of fans, but we'd love that to be 100 million fans, and we'd love that to be all over the world. And so being able to sort of grow interest on all of our platforms and by extension that popularity, those connections become higher merch sales, become other opportunities that maybe we haven't even contemplated yet, but that's just the goal, to be a recognized brand, to connect people with our mission, which is to inspire and serve the greatest football community in the world, and to have them consuming and spending time with us as much as possible.
And so you'll go to other countries, and Marion, I'm sure you see this all the time. You'll see a Yankees hat, right?
Yep.
You'll
Yeah.
see a Dodgers hat. You'll see a Dallas Cowboys jersey for people who have never been to any of those games. So the goal is to become one of those iconic sports brands worldwide. And I think it's accomplishing it. Like I was in Brazil recently and I was wearing an Eagles jersey and someone said, "Go Birds." And I'm like, "Are you from the US?" They're like, "No."
Yeah.
Like, "You're from Brazil and you know who the Eagles are?"
Yeah.
They're like, "Yeah, they played here, last year." And so I do think you're on your way there, and you're seeing that in your, frankly, going back to the vanity metrics, you're watching your social media channels grow to be some of the largest in sports. Am I getting that right?
Definitely. I would say at any given time, on sort of primary KPIs, whether that's subscriber growth or views or engagement, we're typically number one in the league. And if not number one, we're the top three. So we like that. That's a good metric to track.
Mm.
But we like to sort of also, look at our the opportunity that we have to be even bigger as a brand within professional sports and beyond. So, we love to lead in the league, but we've got our sights kind of set even higher than that. And I love the Go Birds examples. Everyone who's been around the world has had some sort of a Go Birds experience. And when I was in Ghana a few years ago, I remember everywhere I went, you'd see kids kicking soccer balls in any open space. They were kicking soccer balls. And I thought, wow, the goal is really to come back someday and see kids throwing footballs.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's, that simple and that metric matters. But yeah, to be globally embraced is definitely important to us.
On that topic, I actually read that the fact that you're going to Brazil, Ghana, Australia, New Zealand, this is part of a program by the NFL. Could you speak a bit more to that? Because I don't think I've ever seen that with, any other sports.
Yes. So it's called the Global Markets Program. It launched about 4 years ago. And the idea was that the league would open up fan development rights to clubs who were interested in going into different countries and beginning to do just that, invest in fan development, all with the intent to help, the game overall grow globally. And so initially, I would say it was, kind of a smaller handful of teams that decided to go first, and now I think all 32 have a global market in at least, one or more countries. And at first, I think some of the thinking was, oh, it'd be so great to go first, or it'd be so great to be the only team so that you can really kind of, dominate with your messaging and all of that. But I think over time, or at least in my opinion, we've realized it's better to have more teams in more countries, right? Because this sport is so much built on competition and rivalry and matchups and all the things that get people feeling proud about one side or rooting against another, and we're definitely farther along there than we were a few years ago, which I think is exciting. And we're playing more games in more countries than ever before. I mean, you haven't seen, Sunday, 9:30 in the morning every few weeks, there's an international game and that's going to continue. And I think that's pretty exciting.
I think that's a great way to build your sports. So in Europe, we play rugby, we play football, right? So I love that you're saying that you want to have more teams doing just what you were doing, and because I think it is needed, right? At the end of the day, if you start building that fan base, you know how that goes, right? Then you have local broadcasters investing in the sports more and more. And so now, these last few years, M6 has been investing, and they've bought the Super Bowl. And I know that they're showcasing a Sunday night football game at 7 p.m., which, we'd seen none of that, right? Because most of our ability to watch the NFL is the Game Pass that they have with the Zone. But this is very bespoke. I think this would be great for Evan if he were to travel. But for us, we still rely heavily on our local broadcasters, pay TV operators to get the best of sports. So, yeah, build the fans, and then you get the broadcasters and others to help you elevate and grow the sports in each
Well, what's
market.
interesting is for the Brazil game between the Packers and the Eagles, and the Eagles have now beaten the Packers 4 straight times. Jalen is 4-0 against the Packers. Nick Sirianni is 4-0 against the Packers. You beat the Packers last Monday night, and the Packers fans were the ones who voted to ban the tush push. So good on you, Packers fans. Anyway, in Brazil, the game was actually broadcast on a YouTube channel
Oh,
called
wow.
Kaze TV. Yeah. This sportscaster, this
Mhm.
YouTube sportscaster in Brazil broadcast the game on his YouTube channel. The NFL gave him the
Mhm.
rights, a
Yeah.
YouTuber, to stream the game on his YouTube channel, which I found absolutely fascinating. Were you aware of that?
Yeah, yes, and it is fascinating, and I think, to Marion's earlier point, I almost wish the broadcasting, distribution came before the fan development, because it
Yeah.
would make things a lot easier. One of the hardest things, for us is how do you teach people the game in a way
Right.
that's going to make them
Yeah.
want to
It's a
watch?
very complicated game to
It
watch.
It's
is.
complicated. It is. And I appreciate hearing from other sports fans how complicated it is, because it makes me feel better about how much I had to learn and still have to learn.
Yeah.
Um, but no, it's, getting those games into those countries and in front of as many people as possible is a challenge. And so those sort of creative ways of distribution, I believe, will probably continue. It's also a lot of the reason you see watch parties. We
Right.
host watch parties and try to get fans to gather in spaces where we can not only bring the sort of brand to life, but also give them the actual game. So, the more ubiquitous the broadcasts become, the easier our jobs will get. But I do think it forces some innovation that's interesting and something that we can kind of learn from.
I wanna ask you about the Eagles cinematic universe.
Yes.
So you've got the Eagles, and you've got really this great. It is like watching The Office
Yeah.
set in a locker room. I mean, because the characters, they play games together, they have
Yes.
ongoing jokes with each other. It's really kind of fascinating to watch and fun and hysterical.
Mhm.
Um, but you've spawned these extra brands. So the Kelsey brothers, obviously Travis, because he's dating
Mhm.
Taylor Swift, is the most famous football player in the world, but the Kelsey New Heights podcast is now the most popular podcast, I think,
Yes.
out there. It
Yeah.
broke records when T Swift was on it. But then that spawned Kylie Kelsey. So Jason Kelsey, who's a center, the
Yeah.
least sexy position in all of football. He's now an immense star. And
Yeah.
his wife now has a massive podcast,
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie, with Kylie Kelsey. And
Mm.
then Reed Blankenship and Cooper DeJean, Fly Cooper Fly, I'm wearing his t-shirt right now. They started their own podcast called The Exciting Mics, which
Yes.
is really blowing up and becoming popular. What was was there a plan to create kind of a larger cinematic universe around the Eagles? Because I don't see that happening.
Mhm.
There are players here and there who become famous, but very few, cornerbacks of
Yeah.
the team have a very popular podcast.
Yeah.
Was that a plan? Was that part of the mission?
I'm going to bring it back to, well, one, the fact that it's happening is a testimony to how much football and pop culture have the potential to overlap. And, the Kelsey brothers obviously have done a phenomenal job with that. I will go back to culture again and say the types of individuals that you bring into this building
Mm.
because you believe that in addition to performance metrics, that chemistry matters and a defined culture matters that breeds these kinds of relationships that are both, fiercely competitive, but also playful and fun and connect with others, like that's the natural output of that. We didn't say to Reed and Cooper, you guys should make a podcast, but they did show up to a game with Exciting Whites t-shirts, which we took a picture of, posted online. It became a meme. A brand started to build. They grabbed it, made it their own, picked a different medium, and continued on. And I think that's, what is so fun about it. And would we like to do more of that is engineered here? Sure. Is that a lot of what we look for in the content we create and test? Seeds of ideas that have the potential to become bigger? Absolutely. And for fans, I think it's great because in addition to the podcast, we're seeing all these incredible documentaries, sports
Right.
documentaries, Kelsey's documentary,
Right.
Saquon's documentary. That will continue because these guys have really cool stories to tell and fans want to see them. They can't get enough. I've never ever sat in a meeting with my team and felt like, we're doing too much. Like we just can't seem to
Or we're out of ideas.
no,
Like,
we're never out of ideas.
no,
Yeah.
but it's just every time I think, all right, well, I've got this down. I know what the cadence is. Some new piece of content will come out and I'll be like, oh my goodness, that was super exciting. And I'll,
Totally.
like the number of times a week your social media feed makes me weep
Yeah. I know.
is kind of embarrassing, to be honest with you.
Well, no, that's the fun part about it. People want to be moved, right, by their team. And that also makes them it reminds them why they're Eagles fans. You feel so proud of, what we do on Sundays or Mondays or Thursdays, but you don't always get to see like what we do in the community and the way these guys touch people's lives and in ways that are just immeasurable and unexpected. And that matters too, because when things aren't going well on the field, you need something to kind of lift people up with and remind them that even if the outcome of the game didn't go the way we want, we're still the team that you want to be a fan of. Things like Kid Reporter, I think, are unexpectedly fun
Yeah.
things. Bringing in players' kids to sit with a 360-pound lineman and ask hilarious questions. I mean, that video exceeded 1 million views faster than any other video we've ever posted on our YouTube channel. So what does that tell you? It says people like to be moved. They want to shed a tear, and as much as they want to root for us on the field.
You talked about the culture there, and I do want to mention that. I mean, 201, it does seem like the entire team is a bunch of very nice young men.
Mhm.
These are good people.
Mhm.
Jalen kind of personifies it, but then Saquon too, and obviously
Yep.
Jason Kelsey, but they're all they it does seem like Nick and Howie in particular, they look for not just good players, but to
Mhm.
your point, culture fit as well. So I
Yes.
want to pivot this to a very controversial topic, which
Uh-oh.
is the Philadelphia sports fandom
Yes.
and the fact that the rest of the league thinks we're a bunch of crazy assholes.
Yeah.
They just think we're just out of our fucking minds and that we're
Mhm.
terrible people. And in reality, anyone who understands the Eagles fan base knows that that's not true. These are actually just incredibly passionate, very knowledgeable football fans who do not cotton to bullshit.
Yeah.
Am I wrong on this? I mean, you're not from Philadelphia. You were not born there. You had
Right.
very little knowledge of the Philadelphia football culture before you got
Mhm.
there. Like, what are you finding in the fandom that you can tell the rest of the league about?
Yes. Well, what you said is fair. One of the things I recognized coming in was there is a lot of stereotypes about this fan base and a lot of old tropes and things that we need to start to break up, right? And the only way to do that is to begin to stack more stories and more examples of how this fan base is the antithesis of that. I think we've made a lot of progress, but I do think there are some stories, people like to hang on to because it's lazy.
Yeah, I mean, there's
Yeah.
that trope from, oh, you threw batteries. Well, that was 1975 when
I know.
you booed Santa Claus and threw snowballs at Santa Claus. Again, that was the 70s. Go back to the
Yeah.
70s.
Yeah.
Literally everybody alive in the 70s was an asshole.
Right.
So it just happened to be that
Everybody.
our version of it got caught on film. But then
Yeah.
when we were prepping for this episode, we discussed the
Mhm.
Giants game the other
Yes.
day.
Yeah.
Talk about that for a second.
Yeah, I think that's a great example of how we are actually like a very passionate and compassionate fan base. So after Scadaboo went down with that terrible injury and was finally placed on the cart, he got a standing ovation from the stadium. It was quiet. People were concerned. Nobody wants to see a player hurt like that. Doesn't matter if you're a division rival or not. So it is fantastic to see those examples, play out in real time, because I do think they do a good job of combating a lot of that old legacy stuff that likes to hang around.
So, Jen, the Eagles are going to be playing the Black Friday game. Is that correct?
That is correct. We are playing on Black Friday this year, which we are very excited about. We may have some surprises in store for that game. Nothing I could talk about in detail just yet, but we will definitely make use of the platform that we're being given on Black Friday to have some fun with.
Well, there's something interesting about that game. So we're playing the Bears
Yeah.
that week, right? But what's fascinating is that the fandoms between the Bears and the Eagles have actually aligned on social media of late, because the Bears have beaten the entire NFC East and the Eagles have beaten the entire NFC North. And so
Yeah.
they've kind of formed a weird, survivor-like alliance. Is
Yeah.
that something you're stoking online?
No, I would say we're not stoking it, but we certainly see it happening amongst the fan base, and it's fun, and
It'll
but
be interesting to see how it happens at that game in particular
definitely.
after this alliance, because it's going to wind up becoming a very important game. And I'm actually going. Well, by the time this airs, I will have gone to Sunday night's game, thanks to you,
Yeah.
and I cannot wait because it's a Detroit Lions, very important game,
It's gonna be a
playoff
big
game,
game.
ostensibly. Yeah.
Big game. Bundle up. It's going to be chilly.
Yeah, I'm used to it. So that leads us to a question of the week. So we've talked about the Philadelphia fans and how special they are, but how that fan base is growing. I'm interested. Like, you've worked in general entertainment, right?
Mhm.
You're a marketer first, not a footballer first, right? What do you think is the lesson to be learned? What's the kernel of strategy and thought that
Mm.
can be transported from the fandom around sport to the fandom around content?
I think the thing to be learned is that at the end of the day, people want to feel a connection to entertainment that they are passionate about. So, if in the example of traditional, let's say, television or streaming content, the extent of that is just creating promos, like, go deeper. Connect me to stories and talent and people and moments and ways that help to accomplish that, and not just remind me when to tune in, if we even do that anymore, because I don't think anybody watches anything in real time. But yeah, I think permission to get creative uh within that sort of domain that you have, and making those cultural connections is really what matters, because it's competitive out there. People can spend their time doing a lot of different things, and you want them to be doing things with you.
Awesome. This
Nice.
has been, every episode is my favorite episode. You know that, Marion,
He
but
says
this
that
is
to
definitely.
everyone. So,
This is definitely my favorite episode ever.
oh,
Thank you so much, Jen, for coming on. It's just been great to see you, great to talk to you. This is an important, I think, set of lessons for the rest of the content ecosystem. And, go Birds.
Go Birds. Thank you so much. I love what you're doing here. Thank you for having me.
thank
Sure.
you, Jen. Cheers.
Thank you, Marianne, for indulging my fandom this week. I really appreciate it. Was that fun for you? Are you
Yeah,
going
that
to be
was fun. Of course. So, what I love about the pod, right, again, is how much we're co-sharing, our two cultures, our passions. And so I've learned a lot of stuff. And I think there's also a lot of things. If you put the sport itself on the side, the fact that it's American football, a lot of what Jen said, really very much applies to, my own fandoms in the region, right? May that be Paris Saint-Germain, or I'm a Golden State fan. I'm actually a basketball fan,
Oh, are you?
So
That's right. You are a big basketball fan.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm going to become a Paris Saint-Germain fan. That is PSG is my next team that I'm gonna jump on the bandwagon
So
for.
actually, I'm gonna make a
Help
request.
that they're champions.
Yeah, well, so that's kind of easy. That's when I became a fan of
Jump on the top.
The Warriors. I was a fan before they even won, right? If you're becoming a Paris Saint-Germain fan now that they won the Champions League, you're gonna be it's just like so.
Well,
Jen,
no, I won't be a fair weather fan. I will stay on.
okay.
But I will say, as we go out, I'm gonna ask you to indulge me one last time because I'm gonna sing the Philadelphia Eagles fight song as we go out.
Okay, we're gonna do that. No, but before you do that, so you need to. Okay, I'm gonna prompt you to do that because I have a mini surprise for you. Sort of. Maybe it's gonna fail, but before we do that, I've indulged your passion, and so I'm for those still listening to the pods, guys, I want to bring someone from Paris Saint-Germain. We've had Jen from the Eagles. I want Jen from the marketing team at Paris Saint-Germain, and then we would be even. So anyone who's listening to the pod, if you have an in into the Paris Saint-Germain, I'm interested.
Okay, and you have a fight song too, right?
Huh?
The Paris Saint-Germain has a fight song, don't they? You've sung it on the pod before.
Oh yeah. Ici, c'est Paris.
There you go. So as we go out, I'm going to sing the Philadelphia Eagles fight song. Thank you very much. This is a great episode. Thanks for listening or watching. We will see you next week or hear you next week on the pod. And with that, fly, Eagles, fly on the road to victory. Fight, Eagles, fight. Score a touchdown, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Hit 'em low, hit 'em high, and watch our Eagles fly. Fly, Eagles, fly on the road to victory. E-A-G-L-E-S, Eagles!